And you just mentioned something there in the midst of that. You said that you could have ended up going, because you legit could have gone anywhere. You ended up going to, you said why not just go to MIT? Mm-hmm. You ended up going to Florida A&M. Yes. So what was it that suddenly led to that being the decision to go to an HBCU?
Honestly, I'm going to just keep it all the way 100. The money. Honestly, it was because I did want to go to MIT, and I had gotten, I hadn't finished the application process at the time, but I had gotten, as part of the application process for MIT, you have to be interviewed by an MIT alum in your area. And I had gotten my interview, and the guy was super impressed, and he was like, I'm definitely going to write you a letter of recommendation. I think you should go. I think you should be there. I was figuring out how to pay for it at the time. And, you know, as smart a kid as I was, my test scores weren't like, I mean, they were decent, but, you know, I didn't make a 1,600 on my SATs. I didn't even make a 1,500 on my SATs. So, you know, MIT was not breaking down my door to give me any money to actually go. So I was figuring out how I was going to go and pay for it. I didn't want to take out a whole bunch of loans. MIT is super expensive. So I didn't want to do that. So I actually at the time was looking into an Air Force ROTC scholarship. Because I did have all of the qualifications for that. I was, you know, diametrically opposed to doing a active duty, you know, tour afterwards. But I was like, you know what, if 2 years active duty is going to get me this free degree, then so be it. You know, I'll suck it up. But in the midst of, and then too, you know, you couple that with, you know, parents that didn't go to college. So I was sort of navigating this whole financial aid college application process by myself. You know, I was feeling like a boss, because I was actually getting mail from schools. You know, when you're young, you don't get mail. Nothing comes to the house with your name on it. But so I'm getting mail every day from different schools, and everybody wants to, you know, give me a financial aid package. But I'm literally just, you know, sort of figuring this out on my own for the most part. And as I'm figuring out how I'm going to pay for MIT, you know, mind you, I still hadn't gotten in yet, but I figured I'm going to get in. The president of Florida A&M University, Dr. Frederick S. Humphreys, at the time, called me. And he was in town. He was in Pittsburgh at the time doing like an info session for students. And he wanted me to come out to the info session. And I didn't take the call.
The president of this university, whose last name is really close to yours, calls you, and you didn't take the call.
I had a basketball game that day, and I was like, I ain't missing my game to talk to this guy and go to this info center, because I had never heard of Florida A&M University. You know, I'm from the North. You know, HBCUs weren't necessarily a thing. And then when you're in a community where not a whole lot of people even go to college anyway, like, you don't have that foundation. You know, I knew about Howard and Spelman and Morehouse, and that was about it. You know, if you said Tuskegee, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's one too. But right. So I could probably name 5 HBCUs if I had to at the time, but you know, because they don't teach that in school, and because, you know, there was no one around me that had that experience, the importance of HBCUs and the history behind HBCUs wasn't something that I grew up hearing all the time. You know, now, I get to school and I meet people who are like, oh, my parents went to FAM, my grandparents went to FAM. I always knew I was going to go to FAM. You know what I mean? And you're like, what? You know what I mean? So I didn't have that experience. And then I also, again, growing up in a kind of lower economic strata, you weren't in Jack and Jill. You didn't have a parent that was in a fraternity or a sorority or a link or whatever. So that whole sort of talented 10th ecosystem wasn't something that I was a part of growing up. So I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't even know better. So I hadn't even heard of Florida A&M University before President Frederick S. Humphreys called me. And so, you know, in my youthful ignorance, because I'm going to MIT, you know, why I need to talk to this man, you know, at this school called FAMU that I've never heard of. But, you know, with God's grace, he called me back. He called me back after his info session that I didn't go to, And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, Stephanie Humphrey. I finally took the call. Stephanie Humphrey, you are a hard young lady to get in touch with. I was like, hey, what's up? Real casual. This is a university president. I'm like, what's good? And he said, listen, I want you to come to Florida A&M University, and I can promise you, if you come, you will never have to pay anything other than a $35 application fee. And I said, sign me up.
There you go.
And that was it. And at the time, what I didn't know at the time was that he was on a mission to make FAMU the best HBCU in the country. And FAMU has been the best HBCU in the country, ranked a number of years. And his strategy at that time was to get the most national achievement scholars to come to FAM, because Harvard always got the most national achievement scholars. And, for some background, the National Merit Program is scholarship program that gets based off your PSAT scores, and the National Achievement Program is a subset of that for students of color. So if you became a National Achievement Scholar, you could pretty much write your own ticket. And I was a National Achievement Scholar and National Merit semifinalist. And so he got my name from the list, and he's like, we want more National Achievement Scholars than Harvard. That was his main goal, and he did that in the time that he was the president of that university. So, he was crisscrossing the country just calling up National Achievement Scholars and basically offering them money. And that's what he did for me. And the rest is, as they say, is history.
You were basically being recruited like a football player or a basketball player would have been, where these guys are calling up, going in all these different homes, these different places, where enough that when I've seen from college football recruiting, how you look up and down a list, like Michigan State University, it's like, how the hell did they get 3 guys from Miami to come up here to this cold weather? It's like because of things like that, where he reaches out to you. Actually, the National Merit Scholarship, because my high school in Detroit, Renaissance High School, we had a bunch of them come out of there, because I know we had about at least 7 or 8 people that I graduated with, and it's 1997, but 7 or 8 of them that I graduated with, and another, I think for about a good 7-8 year stretch. Detroit was a pipeline down to FAM too. One more infamous FAMU alum from Detroit is Kwame Kilpatrick, but it's like, yeah, but we had a lot of, we won't bring Kwame up into this, but FAMU it's very interesting, because as you know, I teach at a HBCU at Lincoln, and my mother went to an HBCU. She went to Tennessee State. And so for me, it was either Howard, Hampton, Morehouse, Tuskegee she knew about, and I had never heard of FAMU either until I started seeing some of the FAMU reps show up in Detroit at the same time. It's like, where's this school even?
FAMU. Everybody used to say FAMU. I was like, no, it's FAMU. But yeah, that's a spot on analogy, because Dr. Humphreys was super, super committed to having the best and the brightest at Florida A&M University, and he made sure that happened. And I owe him everything, honestly, to this day. I still see him, and we had a relationship. It was funny because my mom was like, well, I'm not sending you down there sight unseen. I ain't never heard of this school. So they paid for me to visit their campus over my spring break of my senior year. I went down to FAM and spent the week there and talked to the head of the computer science department, and met President Humphreys and his wife, and that's the kind of thing they do at HBCUs. You know what I mean? They make sure that you're good and make sure that you have what you need to succeed. They put you in that position, and yeah, just totally changed my life. And he's right. He was right. I never had to pay for anything.
What was the experience like as a student there?
Gosh, it's indescribable. I mean, the idea that you could be on a campus with 10,000 other people that look like you, that were all in pursuit of knowledge, all committed to excellence. I mean, obviously not every single one of them, but, all committed to excellence, with Black professors, and it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put in that. It was the best time of my life. I learned more there about just life and Black people than any other time in my life. It was the most fun I ever had. It was everything. It was everything. It literally changed my life and changed my worldview and my viewpoint on everything. And just, again, to have so many people committed to helping you succeed. because they knew what that meant, and they knew that if you did well, then the people after you would get the opportunity to do well, and that you'd be honoring the people before you that had to do even better to get, it was just the history, the community, the connection that you have with everybody on campus. You're not going to get that anywhere else in the world besides an HBCU campus. You're just not. Anybody from Florida A&M could call me or email me today and say, listen, I'm an alum, I'm gonna be in Philadelphia tomorrow, can you? And I would pick them up from the airport, and I would take them out to lunch, and we would chop it up, and whoever I knew in my network that could help them, I would connect them to that person, just off the strength of them being a Rattler. So, and I walk on this earth knowing that any other Rattler that I came in contact would do the same thing for me. So it's just you're not getting that anywhere else besides an HBCU, and so it was truly a defining and life-changing moment of my history.